Hi guys, and welcome back to TomTalks. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Don't know what I was doing my hands there. But today we are talking about the 5th studio album from Miss Charli XCX-CRASH. This is her first project in a few years. She originally started recording this in about 2020, but then lockdown happened and she of course made How I'm Feeling Now. During that time it was a very DIY project that made with fans, and it's about what she was experiencing during lockdown. I have an interesting history with Charli. I wasn't a big fan of her first sort of stuff. True Romance was a sort of very average, not particularly interesting synth pop album, and Sucker was this very obnoxious pop punk inspired record which really wasn't for me. But then that all changed with Vroom Vroom. That EP was, at the time, I imagine, because I didn't hear it at the time, but I imagine it was like a complete breath of fresh air for like pop music, of course, with the production of Sophie and AJ Cook. That was really a change in the pop scene. We then of course got Number One Angel, which was pretty good, Pop 2, which was a fantastic mixtape, which includes one of my favourite songs from Charli, Out My Head. And then we got Charli, which was a very highly acclaimed album, and it was a fantastic mixture of pop and hyper pop and bubblegum bass, and it was a fantastic record. And then of course we got How I'm Feeling Now, which was like also very good, not as good as the last two projects, but still pretty good, fitting of the time as well. And now we're back to Crash, which is apparently her final album on her record label, and she's kind of going out with a bang. She wanted to make a mainstream record and she's done that. It's very commercial, it's got 80s influence, a bit of 90s dance music as well. Overall, I do enjoy this record. It's better than her first two albums, which are her other more mainstream records, but it's pretty good. Crash starts things off with production from AJ Cook. It also interpolates Move Me, a track from this album, which track number 4 does as well, which is it's interesting. It's a good start to the album. It's got these great little guitar grooves and like this hyperactive pop sound, and the synths and the keyboard are very 80s. There's even a bit of New Jack Swing influence in there. And yeah, it's a sultry tale of feeling good about herself, but sort of spiralling out of control and taking her partner with her. There's a lot of talk on this album about sort of love and sex and seduction and not knowing whether this person is right for them or not, or whether the situation is. Yeah, it's a good start. New Shapes was a fantastic single and it fits well on this album. Great blaring synths and keyboards. What you want? Beep boop. I ain't got it. I love that bit. That chorus is so infectious. Caroline does her thing. Christine and the Queens do their things, and when they all hit the high notes, they sound amazing together. It's pure pop bliss, and I still love the track today. Good Ones was another single produced by Oscar Holter. It's not as powerful as the last track. It's a bit more pop friendly with its use of blaring synths, but yeah, it's a decent little synth pop anthem. It's got an infectious chorus as well, especially Charli's vocal delivery, and yeah, it's just about moving on from somebody who you know is good for you, but you want somebody who's not good for you because that's just what you like. Constant Repeat was a great little synth pop gem with the keyboards and the drum patterns fitting this dancier beat. It's about somebody needing Charli, who's a bad girl, by their side. And again, I think what this track shows, and what a lot of the tracks here show, is like Charli's ability to create sort of simple but satisfying lyrics which just match what you want in a pop song. Like, they're not detailed and but they're not like bland or sort of generic. They're sort of very catchy and focused, and they fit the songs well, and it does that here. And this was another one of the tracks that samples Move Me. Interpolates Move Me, sorry. Beg For You with Rina Sawayama was another great single which interpolates a pop anthem from the 2000s called Cry For You by September. It was produced by Digital Farm Animals, who has produced a few of KSI's more dance pop garage cuts, and this has definitely got that with the interpolation of the song I mentioned and a bit of garage in it, and I love garage, so this is my vibe. I love as well, like, the bouncy synths and the use of strings here. Like, Charli uses strings a few times on this album, but it's used very well here, and it's about just begging for somebody to be with you, and like both her and Rena just, they sound great on this track, and it's a pop anthem, and you can see why it's been the big hit from the album. Move Me was the first track on this project where I was a bit like, It's got a very skeletal beat with like the trap drums and the skittering synths to give it a ballad vibe, and the production just didn't do much for me, and I also didn't like the use of auto-tune on the bridge. But Charli does sound good here. I like the vibe of it. The lyrics are good, but it just falls short of being a good track for me personally. Baby is another fantastic single. It's like this funky 80s amp. I love the use of the bass and the synths here. It really gets you grooving and up on your feet, especially when I saw Charli live last week. It's another one of those simple but satisfying lyrically and infectious chorus. It's just a simple tale of like seducing someone, but Charli just, yeah, she does it well. And also it kind of reminded me a bit of Black Box's Ride on Time, sort of the beat a bit, and sort of Charli's delivery as well. Maybe that was just me, I don't know. But a great single nevertheless. Lightning is another fantastic song. It's got this very heavy bass and synths with the auto-tune vocals, especially on the pre-chorus where Charli sounds like a robot, but it's good. Like, Charli has mastered her use of auto-tune as time has gone on, and she uses it well here. The chorus goes out like a bang. It's infectious. It's got a bit of 90s influence on the synths. And I also love the Spanish guitar at the end. That really adds those final touches to what is a pretty solid banger. Every Rule was another one produced by Mr. AJ Cook with a bit of help from 108 Fricks Point Never, who did a lot of work on The Weeknd's new album. And yeah, it's a slow sort of electronic ballad. It's about meeting somebody whilst you're with somebody and knowing it's wrong but feeling great about it at the time. And it's a bit more on the basic side production wise, and it's quite simple, but it works very well, and I do like it, and it's a nice sort of change of pace from the sort of big bangers, which I like, but it's nice to get a bit of difference now and again though. Yuck was another track that I didn't really like. It was produced by Mike Wise, who produced that kind of obnoxious 10 Things I Hated About You by Leah Kate that's doing well. I mean, I kind of like the humorous aspect of it, of being sort of like disgusted about being in love and being treated well by a partner, being like, oh, I don't like this. Production is like kind of obnoxious and not particularly that interesting, and it leaves me feeling a bit mixed on it. Used to Know Me is another track where I'm kind of okay with it overall. I think it does rely a bit too much on the interpolation of Robin S.'s Show Me Love with a bit more of a dance poppy sound. The production's a bit more basic, but it's, you know, it's good. It's lyrically good, which I think is what makes it stand out a bit, which makes me warm to it overall. But the production again here is just, it's not doing too much for me. We end things with Twice, which is by far the weakest track on the album. It's got this like floaty tropical beat. Lyrically, Charli's not really doing it for me here, and the production here, it all feels very half-baked and minimal effort. And like, it's a very disappointing conclusion to this project, because for me, like, most of it was like, yeah, it's mainstream and it's not as daring as some of Charli's best work, but it's energetic, it's catchy, it's euphoric. But the last few tracks, I don't know, the production just didn't do it too much for me, and I was a bit disappointed by it personally, and the album closer really just, yeah, it's not for me. I do like this project. I think it's pretty good, and there's a lot of bangers on here. The singles were great as well, but there's a few too many moments where the production's not doing it for me, or it doesn't feel too different from a lot of mainstream pop at the moment. As a mainstream album, I think it's pretty good. I think Charli has done what she set out to do on this project. And I would be happy for her to do more mainstream stuff. I mean, Charli was kind of a mixture of mainstream and hyperpop, but I also would love to see a return to that hyperpop sound as well. So, yeah. Overall, I'd give this project a pretty solid 7 out of 10. But what were your thoughts? Did you like this album? Did you dislike it? Did you like it more than me? What do you think of Charli XCX's music as a whole? Would you go see her live? I did, it was pretty good. And I will leave a link in the description to my thoughts on seeing her live. Till next time, folks, this has been another Tom Talks.